Well, Rick, I'm glad to get to share some ideas with you and talk to you about how the foundation works throughout Hawaii. The Caregiver Foundation actually has clients on every island with the exception of Ni'ihau. And who knows, that may come too. It'll be interesting. We have a lot of people who live on the mainland or live here and their parents are on the mainland. So it becomes very difficult for them to provide care for a loved one. And then we have a lot of people living here, working 2 jobs, usually both of them in the family. And they have loved ones who, for some reason, need home care. Could be a financial reason, or it could be like my father who says, I'm never leaving this house, to some other kind of circumstance where the individual is not going to be in a facility like this beautiful one here at Ilima, or some of the other ones on Oahu and a few on the other islands. So the question comes up, how do I do it? How do I pay for it? Who can help me? What are all of these things that I need to know to be able to take care of somebody in the way that I want to take care of them? Once in a while there'll be somebody who says, I'm not going to take care of somebody. I don't want to. I didn't like them. They didn't like me. I don't owe them anything, so I don't want to do it. That's the person who usually does end up taking care of someone in a dysfunctional family. It's usually the one that can actually verbalize their opposition to it that ends up with that duty. But we're not going to go into that today. That's a whole set of different emotional and practical issues related to that. But we're going to assume that you want to take care of somebody. The first thing is to realistically look at the level of care your loved one has a need for. I like to beat up on my dad because he's not here and he's very convenient to beat up on. He's the type of person who all of his life has done everything. He can do construction, electrical, plumbing, counseling. I mean, everything you can think of, he's quite adept at it. But he's now 93 years old. So he's not quite physically capable of keeping up with it all. He will tell you different, but the reality is he can't take care of his full 1.5 acres by himself. He has troubles going under the house to fix something. Just the normal things that happen to your body as we age. Things change. You can't always do everything you were able to do. So looking at that in a realistic fashion usually requires somebody other than your loved one to look at their situation. But if it's you, you're going to have an argument. What do you mean I can't do that? I can do that fine. They'll argue with you about what they can do, and that's kind of a normal family situation. So one of the things the Caregiver Foundation does is provide an outside assessment. And we don't bring a nurse in a nurse's uniform or a doctor with a stethoscope around his neck. We bring in somebody who is used to talking to older people and can strike up a conversation, and all during that conversation they're observing what's going on, how's the mind working, any difficulties standing or sitting. They may look at a picture on the wall and say, oh, can you come show me, just to see if the person can get out of that chair easily. But all the time looking at what does this person have difficulty doing. And then they go back to the office and they produce a complete assessment of what we see as the needs that your loved one might be exhibiting. Then planning for those needs can become a group effort with the family. We have a whole process where we take a family through a very formal planning structure, or it can be having us design a plan or hiring a case manager whose work is trying to develop a plan for people. But developing a plan is essential. If you let things go on a day-to-day basis to see how it goes, then you will be responding to emergency after emergency after emergency, instead of preventing those emergencies by developing practical solutions or practical ways to assist in life. I'll give you an example. Walking. Falls among seniors are the #1 cause of hospital admissions. Old person falls down, you hear it all the time. They fall down, break a hip, they get sick, they're in the hospital, and they die. You'll hear that from old people especially. They say, don't ever fall down, you'll die. Not quite so true, but it is really common for an older person with brittle bones to have really significant problems if they fall. So, do you wait until they fall, or do you look at it realistically and say, you know, we need to put in a handrail along the hallway. We need to try and eliminate stairs wherever possible. We need to get those lamp cord pieces from running underneath the carpet across. In fact, we need to get rid of the carpet. We need to rearrange the furniture in the room so they don't have to wind their way through a maze. Practical things that you get some resistance on, but usually it'll be accepted because your loved one actually knows what they need. They just won't take the step themselves. So looking at it realistically, you can have practical things undertaken to help someone prevent a fall. And that's just one example. Other things that you need to look at if your loved one is going to stay home. How do you deal with a stove? Do you still have a microwave? Some people say, well, why wouldn't you have a microwave? You ever seen what it does to a tin cup? As we get older, we might forget what kind of utensil can go in the microwave. And instead of having something heat up, we have something blow up. So it can be real interesting to watch, but not so safe for your loved one. We'll go through a house in very minute detail, looking for all of the things that we think need changing. Doing it on yourself, though, we make a couple of suggestions. The first thing to look at is lighting. Most seniors live in homes that are too dark. When my dad built his house, he put in these beautiful wall scones that look like candles. Very pretty. They don't illuminate very much. Now when you go into his house, you have to kind of peer. Where is he? Where's the chair? You know. He's practical enough that he's cooperated in putting up high-intensity LED lighting throughout most of the house now. So instead of stumbling your way into the kitchen, you turn on the light and it's like the sun just came up. You know, it's very bright, very easy to see. Very inexpensive too, to do those things. But that's the first thing that we tell people to look for is, what's the lighting like? If you're living by yourself, that's also the first thing you want to look at. What's my lighting like? If my eyes start to have trouble, am I going to fall over something? So increase the lighting. The second thing is to get people to look at the furniture and what's on the floor. Just rearranging furniture a lot of times can prevent falls. Getting rid of cords, electric cords on the floor is essential. And if there are loose carpets, even if you paste the carpet down with those wonderful carpet adhesive strips, there'll still be a trip hazard. Pull them up, put them in the closet. If they're valuable Persian carpets, call up your niece and say, do you want them now or after I'm dead? Maybe she'll come get them out of the closet and you won't have to worry about them anymore. That's really important. The third thing is to take a real good look at the bathroom. Most falls happen in the bathroom. If you have a tub, how are you going to safely get in and out of that tub if your knees start giving you trouble? How are you going to help mom and dad get in and out of that tub if they weigh 200 pounds and you're like someone like my wife who is 5 feet tall and weighs 120? I don't think she can pick up a 300-pound person and put them in the bathtub. So how do you compensate for that? For yourself and for your loved ones? Well, they make wonderful adaptive devices. There's a simple device that simply has a stool. One side of it sits in the bathtub, the other side sits out of it, and the top slides. So outside of the bathtub, you turn around, sit down, put one leg over the tub, slide yourself in. You don't have to stand up at all. Sit there, take your shower, slide back out. But if you slide back out and there's nothing to help you stand back up, you still could have a fall. So grab bars are essential. And being practical about putting those in means you have to step back and say, I know it's not going to look so beautiful, but I need it anyway, and go ahead and put them in. Now, grab bars have come a long way from the 1.5 to 2-inch stainless steel industrial looking thing. You can now get designer grab bars that look like fancy pieces of wood, and so there's some aesthetics that are have come into the picture now. But making sure that the bathroom is safe, making sure that the floor is safe, and making sure that the lighting provides safe viewing. Those are the 3 essential things that we encourage every family and every individual to take very seriously and look at their own situation and the situation of their loved ones. Now, we go a lot deeper than that when we do our analysis and recommendations in the house, because we'll actually look at the width of the hallways, the width of the doorways. Do the doorways need offset hinges, or can you widen the doorway? Because we're looking down the road. Perhaps at some point you need a wheelchair, but you still don't want to move anywhere. You want to stay there. Wheelchairs are usually not very good in a normal house. They're difficult to move around. Maybe the house has to be modified. Does it need a ramp? Does it need to have a lift put in? Now, lifts have come a long way from just those stair climbing chairs. There are small little, very inexpensive elevators you can put in now. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So we get a lot more in detail, and we project out further. But start with those first 3 things. The second area in planning for staying in your own home and planning for caring for your loved one is to look at your own finances. So we've talked about the facility, the home. Talking about the finances is an area that your loved one does not want to deal with. They don't want to talk about it to you, especially if you're their kid. I first brought it up to my father, and his immediate response was, "What, are you waiting for me to die?" That wasn't my intent at all. I wanted to have some idea of what resources he had, because he was, at that time, 87 years old, living with my mother in their own home. And my thought was, what if one of them suddenly needs a lot of care? That's expensive. Well, my dad was smart enough to know I wasn't asking to know about his, could sit there and figure out how to keep it all. But his response was what most people get. We're private about our money. We've worked hard for it. We've gathered assets together, and how dare our kids come in and ask us about it? It's none of their business. Go earn your own. Right? Well, in a family, you've got to be more open about it. We've had clients that have come to us wanting to age in their own home who didn't have family, but always assumed that because they had a home or a condo or an apartment, that they would be able to stay there. And when we looked at their financial situation, there was no way they were going to be able to afford the kind of care that they could need. Now, hopefully they're planning before the need. We had an individual last year who wanted to stay in their own home. He had fallen down, ended up at the hospital. The hospital was calling us, asking about the safety of discharging him back to his own home. We did an assessment of the home and came up with about $38,000 worth of just routine changes to the home that needed to be made in order for him to live there safely on his own. He didn't have any savings, and his Social Security check, he had no other pension. He was making $1,820 a month in Social Security. Had he been in his own home, not needing any kind of changes, not needing any support, he would have been able to maintain barely, but he could have. But needing something else made it so that he could not discharge to his own home. We did help him find an alternative setting and help him manage the home as an asset so that the alternative setting was as good as it could be. But being realistic about money is essential. Does mom and dad, or do mom and dad have adequate resources to bring someone into the home if they need personal care? Personal care at the lowest end for non-medically required care starts at about $18 an hour. Now, if you need that over a long period of time, perhaps 24 hours a day, you're still looking at close to $15,000 a month. Can they afford it? If they can, great. Set up the plan, let them have all the care that they need. If they can't, you've got to come up with plan B, plan C, sometimes plan D. It's hard to be honest with ourselves about what we might need personally. I don't want to think of needing somebody to give me a bath, or if I become incontinent, needing somebody to handle that part of my life does not give me warm fuzzies when I think about it. I'm more alert to it because of the work I do every day. So I actually have a plan that will take care of somebody coming into the home to care for me in a personal way if I need it. I planned that quite a long time ago, and I bought long-term care insurance when it was still mostly affordable. Today it's very expensive. It's still a very wonderful product if you get it from the right company, but it's very expensive. So sitting down with someone who can help you chart out the future and look at it realistically is very important in planning finances. If you own a home or a condominium and you have no other source of income, there's always what's called a reverse mortgage. It's the most expensive way to access money, but it's a way of accessing money for your own use. Usually you can borrow up to about 60% of the value of the home, and you have to make no payments while you're alive. At your death, there's about 12 months before your family has to pay the loan or the property becomes foreclosed, and that's that. But for some people, that is a good alternative and allows them to stay in their own home. If there's any other way to do it, I recommend looking at something else, because it's a very expensive alternative. It's a good alternative in the right circumstances. Looking at your income is very, very important. Looking at your assets is equally important. And looking at your family and what kind of support financially they might be able to give you is also important. We've had some families where the family has said, look, I can afford to pay for this care, but I need the money back from your estate. So I can upfront it, take care of you now, but when you're gone, I need to be able to get that back out of the estate. We put them together with an estate attorney and actually draw up a contractual agreement that covers that. So they don't have to go to a bank or something, but it's an arrangement that allows them to access the money in their home or their estate, and then it's returned after their passing. So there are lots of ways of looking at it, but planning it out, looking at it very carefully is really, really important. So that's two F's. We'll talk about facility and finances. And the third F that I like to talk about is friends. A lot of us don't have a lot of friends, but we have people that we like to go see and we like to be associated with and get together with from time to time. A home can be the worst place to maintain friendships. It's very hard if you become homebound to have your friends come in and visit you, because they may be in the same situation. They may be in your same age group or your parents' same age group, not able to provide transportation for themselves, or they have physical difficulties getting in and out of somewhere. So it's very, very hard, and a home can become a prison instead of a wonderful place to retire and to age. So being very realistic about maintaining friendships is really essential to a quality of life that maintains enjoyment. I'm not an overly social person. I don't go out very much. You know, my wife and I do things together quite a bit, but we work so much of the time that we don't have a lot of time to be able to associate with other people in our age group and do the so-called fun things. As we age, we're beginning to realize that if we don't develop those relationships, when we're much older and not working, we won't have those relationships. If one of us passes, the other one has themselves. It's really, really important to develop relationships with other people and to have a group of people that you can at least tolerate that can help with social isolation. There's a lot of studies now that show that social isolation, I can't say it, is one of the factors in premature death among seniors. Because you kind of give up. You're at home, you're alone, the TV is your best friend, and it really doesn't provide a lot of friendship. We need human connection with other people. For some people, that's a church association. For other people, it's a particular club. For some people, it's going into the schools through the foster grandparent program and being a tutor. For some people, it's joining a gardening club. There's a lot of things that can be participated in, even if we're not the type of person who wants to have this close bonded relationship that some people are fortunate to have. My father was a minister for 50 years. He has a very limited number of friends that are still around. Because of the location of his ministry, people came and gone. It was a very, came and went. It was a very transient community. The church that he was a minister at is very good to him. They have, really good relationships there. But those aren't old friends. Those are new friends. And although they are wonderful, it's not quite the same as having someone who's actually known your life history, someone who's grown up with you. So trying to maintain some kind of connection like that is really important. The internet is a great tool for our parents, even if they don't know how to use it. Teach them. There's great classes on teaching that. My dad says she might as well not be there because she wakes up and goes straight to the computer and kind of stays there. But that is her window to the world. She's in touch with more people than my dad is, certainly. Maintains all kinds of communications. So that can be a terrific tool. But the one-on-one individual relationship is really essential. Being able to talk to you makes much of a better connection than sending you an email. We could be the best of friends. An email isn't the same as talking to you on the telephone. And the telephone is not the same as actually seeing you, talking to you, and feeling that relationship in person. So friends are a very critical part of aging in place. Sometimes, jumping back to facility, it's better to look at a facility instead of your own home. We're here at the Ilima today. Beautiful facility. Great place, extremely well run. People who move here develop other relationships. They're around people. I knew one fellow who was living here who really had lived by himself, no particular circle of friends. But due to some different circumstances, he ended up here. And he now has this little group that he goes everywhere with. And he seems to really enjoy it. This was the guy who said, I don't need anybody. I'm fine by myself. I've always been by myself. Well, he seems to have more smiles than he used to. Maybe it's just my imagination, but I kind of think he might be happier here than he was in his own place. Not everybody's like that. But it's worth looking at different types of living arrangements to see what might work for me that I'm not thinking about. Finances, the second F. When you're realistic about finances, you can be realistic about your options. For some people, Medicaid long-term care is going to be an option that's a reality in their life, not something that might be. If you look down the road at becoming disabled to the point where you need to have pretty constant care, unless you have quite a lot to pay for that care, then at some point you're going to run out of money and you're going to need to turn to society and say, I need help. And that's what Medicaid is. It's a program that society pays for to take care of seniors and disabled adults, besides a whole bunch of other things. But in our world, it's seniors and disabled adults. It's critical that we be realistic about that so that we understand how the program works, what are the options in a Medicaid program, and how can I realistically plan if that's going to be part of my aging program. And then the third F again, friends. Am I being realistic about me? Am I being realistic about dad or mom or auntie or uncle? Or are they going to end up mostly alone and mostly not having connections that enhance the quality of life? Be realistic about it, be honest about it, and make a plan. So aging in place, wonderful idea. Not right for everybody, but right for some. But the most important thing is being honest about where, how, and with whom we can age. So that's the 3 F's.
I like that.
In planning.
That's great.
Yeah. Here. Thank you.
Rick, do you have any?
No, a lot of good thoughts, a lot
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah.
I'm glad you gave me those thoughts to think about now.
Yeah.
So I'll have some
It's really, really
resources available
critical.
between now and then.
Yeah. It's important to, I like to write things out. As I get older, I have to write things out, because otherwise I'm going to forget them. But I find if I don't write them out, if I just think about them, it's not enough. Writing it out seems to make you be more honest about what you're looking at. So there's a website that's pretty good, and I can't remember it, but if you send me an email, I'll find it for you. But there's an organization that put together a planning website. It takes you step by step through a whole bunch of questionnaires and helps you come out with a pretty good look at certain situations in your life. So that's another thing the internet is good for us. There's a lot of valuable resource on it to help you look at aging and finding out what might work for me. My wife's been watching RV videos
Really?
for months.
I would
She's
have thought.
convinced we're going to retire, find an RV, and go between our kids on the mainland. Our kids aren't too thrilled about that idea, but I told her maybe we should just rent one and see how it is. But who knows, maybe we will do something like that. If I can still drive. That's what I told her last week. I said, what if we wait another 5 years, how good is my driving going to be? Is that going to be real practical? She said, oh, I think you'll be fine. I hope so, knock on wood.
So Rick, you came out here to retire.
So my last 7 years with my employer was here. I worked for the U.S. government.
Right.
San Francisco the first third, San Diego the second third,
Wow.
and the final third of my career is Honolulu.
What a nice final third.
I know.
And all the siblings in Ohana, they all live in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, well, that's not so bad. And especially if Southwest starts flying, then it gets a lot more economical to go back and forth.
You must have a lot of visitors.
Yeah, every month there seems like, it's not immediate family, siblings, nieces, then it's cousins, yeah, they're all,
Yeah,
it's their access to free lodging.
that's it. Boy, you move to Hawaii and you become a tour guide real quickly.
Cousins, after they've been there 1 week, they're still saying, and your first name was Cousin Rick, that's right.
That would get old a little
That's
fast for me.
awesome.
So,
Well, Gary has some great resources. Aside from the brochure, if you go online, he has a good website, which is being improved as we speak.
yes.
But if you have any, friends, family, there's just so much that the Caregiver Foundation does. Yeah, that's a great resource.
We're always trying to come up with a way to describe what we do. And lately I've been telling people what we try to do is just join your journey. Figure out with you, what is it you need? What's going to make this life work for you? Or for your own family, or for your grandparents, or whoever it is. This is what we do every day. So we have lots of resources. What we don't know, we know who to ask. We can get answers to almost anything. So we can always call up Brandon.
And the caregivers throughout the U.S., they have offices scattered throughout, or?
No, we're just in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.